Today, we have a really interesting guest today. One of the biggest business people in the world. We have today Brad Sugars, who is the founder of ActionCoach, which is a multi-million-dollar coaching franchise. This is something you need to stop and you need to listen to and watch today. Believe me, there is some great stuff here. We start talking about early doors, which is really interesting, about that growth is the only metric of a success of business. If it stops growing, it's not a business anymore. So that is really, in a way, a little bit controversial. Some of these lifestyle entrepreneurs that we have out there that are looking for the right lifestyle. He now has that right lifestyle, but he's been able to grow multiple businesses by being able to do that. We talk about property and real estate and how he has a view that the only way to really make a property business successful is get your tenants to pay off your mortgage, not an interest only mortgage, which is what I've been taught in my property education. So this is really interesting stuff. We talk about hiring the right people. We talk about health, how important to be able to grow a business, you need your health. And then we start talking about some of the other businesses that he has growing and starting at the moment, including a Wagyu beef and a marketing business in the UK. You are going to be absolutely blown away by this conversation. The guy is an absolute genius. He has 18 books that he has written and published. He is on podcasts. He does teachings. He does YouTube videos. He is everywhere. If you want to find where he is, just Google Brad Sugars and you will find everything you need. If you are enjoying this content, please do give it a like, a thumbs up. Please do click on the subscribe button and on the bell icon where you can see the next of these interviews that are coming out. And equally, if you've got any comments, do leave them in below. I'm open and willing to hear people's feedback and questions that they might have, and perhaps people that you would like me to interview in this podcast. So thank you very much for your time. Over to the podcast with Brad Sugars. I'm sure you're going to love it. Today we have Brad Sugars, who is the founder of ActionCoach, which is a multi-million-dollar coaching franchise. Hello, Brad. How are you today?
G'day, Mark. Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know you've got a busy schedule. You've got some things coming up later on this week, so thank you for finding the time. First question, the podcast is called Absolute Business Mindset. Mm-hmm. What does a business mindset mean to you?
I'm going to break it into two answers, one for an owner and one for a team member of a company. If you're the owner, the business mindset has to be growth. It can only be growth. The business is either growing or dying, the same as a tree, the same as anything. If it's not growing, it's not dying. So the growth mindset is probably the business mindset that the owner should be taking into this thing. Status quo doesn't exist. You know, you're learning, the business will never outgrow your learning or your capability. So you've got to grow so the business keeps growing. If your people are growing, then you're growing. Business mindset for a team member really has to be about, how do I make my boss look amazing? Really has to be about, how do I make the boss look great? Because if you realize that your job is not for you to look great, your job is to make sure that your boss looks great, you'll go a long way. If you still think it's all about you looking great, you do not go that far in this game called having a great job, I guess.
So just on that, as a business owner, because a lot of my listeners are entrepreneurs and business owners, you said about growth is the bedrock of a business mindset. When is enough enough?
There should never be such a thing. If you're a business, if you're thinking like a business, then you're looking at market share. If you're thinking like a business owner and you think that the business's goals should be based upon your own personal needs, then you miss the point of having a business. It's a business, by my definition, is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. Like when people learn that I have 11 companies and I run them in 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, people are like, well, how do you do that? And it's like, well, I build people who build companies. My goal is to build a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without me. If I still have to work there, it's not a business, it's a job, and I work for a lunatic. That's the simplest way I can define it. So when is enough enough? when you've sold the business to a venture capital fund for more than 10 times earnings. That's when enough is enough. You know, the goal of any business, and many moons ago, Gerber said it and Gerber wrote the book, The E-Myth, and he said it, I don't think he said it in the book, but I remember him speaking at an event that I hosted, and we brought Michael to Australia to speak, and he said, you know, the only reason to start a business is to sell it. And for the first probably 2 years, I really struggled with that. I don't want to sell it. I love it. I love what I do. I don't want to sell it. Yes, but it has to be capable of being sold. Right. You know, like this is a pair of glasses here, right? How much do these glasses sell for if I don't put the frames in? It's not finished. Therefore, it can't sell for much. Now, most businesses aren't finished. My definition of finished is that the business runs without you. You could take a 6-month vacation and come back and the business would be bigger than when you left. If you have to be there for it to run, the business is hamstrung by your capabilities, your knowledge, and your time, I guess, as well.
Yeah, I read when I was doing some research on you, you talk about that running a business without you, and there's lots of sort of references to sort of a Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week and Michael Gerber, the E-Myth, and building those sorts of things. And I think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners struggle with, that actually they're the bottleneck often in those cases, because they think they know their business best. They know where the direction of the business should go, but actually letting it open up and let other people do that. As you said, you're running multiple businesses in 2 days, which is amazing.
You know, your job as a business person is to become a great business person. Your job as a business owner is to become a great business owner. Your job as an entrepreneur, and the difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur is a business owner runs one business, an entrepreneur runs multiple businesses. You know, the entrepreneur is in the game of buying, building, and selling companies. The business owner is in the business of running that business and producing an annual profit for just that business. The entrepreneur makes capital sales, like they trade in businesses, whereas the business person trades in daily profit type thing. So when I work with, or when any one of my ActionCoach team works with a business owner and they see this definition of a finished business, the challenge is most of them don't have the recipe. You know, you want a cake, okay, and the finished business, the one that runs without you, is the finished cake. Well, what's the recipe? And that's where, luckily enough, at ActionCoach now, we're 29 years old as a company. We've been doing this with hundreds of thousands of business owners every week. Our clients in all 83 countries that we have offices in, you know, we do this. We have 1,100 offices doing this sort of thing. Just our company alone is proof that our methodology works, if that makes sense, you know, just what we do in and of itself. But what we did, about 13 years into the company, I wrote a book called The Business Coach. And what I wrote was our 6-step framework of how you build a business. That is the same framework we use with a chiropractor, as we would with a plumbing contractor, as we would with a restaurant, as we would with a construction firm. It's the same methodology. And so when you take that recipe for how to build a business, you know, it starts with the base level of mastery. And there's 4 areas of mastery that you have to get done if you want to actually move to the next tier. And the next level is marketing. And there's 5 areas of marketing that you have to take care of. And then the next level is systemization. And there's 9 stages to systemization. And the next is team building. And there are 6 keys to a winning team. And then we move to synergy, where we have 5 disciplines of synergy. And so we break everything down for a business owner and teach them step by step by step. And, you know, if you can learn it, you can do it. Yeah. But the learning work is, and Mark, you do this podcast all the time, you know, the learning work's the hardest work. The new knowledge is the hardest work. I mean, you've got the best job in the world. You get to interview smart people and take notes every single week. It's brilliant. I love your job.
I'm absolutely blessed. I get to speak to great people like you, learn a bunch of stuff, which like sometimes it even shocks me that I'm not aware of, and just that whole process that you've just described, from starting a business, building a business, scaling a business, and the future there. I think that's what I've been impressed with meeting some of your franchisees, ActionCoach, is that it's a step-by-step process that you do to build and grow and scale your business. So I think that's the fascinating thing, and I think you've hit the nail, and this is you part of your success has been is that you can slip your coaches into whichever stage those businesses are at, and you can help them grow. So um yeah, it's
Yeah,
absolutely
of course, some of our coaches, in many of our firms, will have a coach who starts with business owners who are in that base level mastery area, and then we'll hand them off to the marketing coach and move them up the scale sort of thing. Because, every business grows at different rates and every business owner's in a different position, has different goals, needs, and wants.
yeah
But I go back to the initial question you asked about when is enough enough? A business, that should never be a question that you're having as an answer. The biggest advantage big business has over small business is they have a board of directors. They have shareholders. And
yeah
what do those shareholders and board of directors consistently demand? Growth and profits. The
yeah
challenge for a small business owner is that there is no one demanding growth and no one demanding profits. And so as long as they've paid the bills, and that's where it distresses me immensely, Mark, when I get to meet with business owners who've hit the point, and they might have been in business a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, however long, but they've hit the point of their goal is to just pay the bills.
mm.
And it's like that is their consistent thought. I just want to pay the bills. And
Well,
it's like,
that's your job, isn't it? That's
but your job is growth. Your job is
no, but I mean for
profitability.
an employee,
Oh yeah, yeah. For
that's
the
the
employee
mindset
is.
of that I spent 14 years in Big Four, and knowing that mindset of you end up spending everything that you earn and then you start again the next month. As a business owner, as an entrepreneur, it is about growing your business and having multiple streams of income and bringing those incomes in that service your future, your family's future. So it is definitely a different mindset, and I've experienced that over the last 3 or 4 years, moving from corporate into entrepreneurship and seeing that and working with great people as well, to see that growth mindset and trying to expand your business and grow your business. So I think that's critical. Now, I've read a lot about your story about saving your money up to see Jim Rohn at 16 years old. You've probably told that story 1,000 times. I'm not going to
At
ask you that.
least.
I'm not going to ask you that question again. The question is now, who at the moment in that speaking circuit is impressing you and is doing something different or doing something that is mastery for as a speaker?
Yeah, I'm lucky enough that I get to, through my companies, I get to employ probably a dozen, 2 dozen speakers a year. So I get to, the ones that I really like, I get to find. Marcus Sheridan, I'm actually coming to the UK to do a tour with him in November. They just signed the paperwork, so I'm going to come and do a tour across the UK in first couple of weeks of November with Marcus Sheridan.
Yeah.
And his stuff on You Ask, We Answer, like customers have questions and most businesses just don't answer those questions well enough, and therefore, be it in their marketing or be it in their sales pitch, and if you don't answer the questions, how can someone make a purchasing decision? How can someone know whether they know, like, and trust you? Which, if you look at marketing today, and this is my 18th book will come out when I do that tour, actually, called Raise Your Hand Marketing. Marketing today has shifted dramatically from a point of view where it was run an ad, someone calls and buys stuff, right? Run a TV ad, people call up and make a purchase. Run a TV ad, people go to the store and buy it. And then we even went to direct selling on TV, the infomercials and all of that sort of stuff. Well, what marketing is today is far more about know, like, and trust. It's about getting people and saying, okay, hey, raise your hand and let me know you're interested in this, and then we'll farm rather than hunt. A lot of the old marketing used to be hunting. A lot of the old sales used to be hunting based. Now it's much more about farming and building a relationship and letting people know. Like, for instance, when this podcast goes live, I won't do a post that puts a link to the podcast. I'll put a post up that'll ask people to raise their hand, meaning I'll say something along the lines of, hey, just did this amazing podcast. In fact, the fourth question Mark asked me is worth listening to the entire thing. It's about 10 minutes in. If you want a link to the podcast, write the word podcast below.
Right.
And so I'll get 100, 200, 500, 1,000 people write the word podcast. But what that tells me is they're interested in whatever the subject I just said is. Yeah. So if someone's interested in learning about wealth, then we'll send them information about my wealth training programs. If someone's interested in learning about success, we'll send them info on that. If they're interested about marketing, we'll send them. Does that make sense? So it's like we're starting a communication piece with people. And I think that's what I like about what Marcus does is he opens people up to find him by writing. Specifically, when he was in the pool business, he wrote blog posts. Right. And his pool business was in 2008, when, of course, the economy went to goodbye. He was like, well, no one's buying a pool. How do I get people to buy a pool? And so, he would write articles, the top 5 best pool builders in our market. And he would put a headline on there, and he tells a great story about saying, we here at his pool company, we know we're the best at fiberglass pools in the area, but if a fiberglass pool isn't for you, then maybe you should be talking to any of these 5 companies that do in-ground, above ground, etc. These are the 5 other pool companies we would recommend. But of course, that's on his website. So when someone clicks top pool builder in whatever, they go to his website. That article leads to him getting business, even though he's given shout outs to 5 other companies type thing. So it's a different way of thinking. So I think Marcus is doing there's so many great teachers out there. And I always start with the books and then work from there. So I look at people's books, and I'm a speed reader. So, well, these days, actually, I don't even read. I just have Audible read it to me.
Oh, so, no, it's brilliant.
On 1.5 times. I press 1.5 times. I can get through the book much faster.
I do exactly the same. It's a lot easier and a lot faster to do it that way.
That goes back to Jim Rohn, who you mentioned, Mark, who taught me back at 16 years of age, if you want to be successful, read a book a week for the rest of your life.
Right.
So, but actually, I do joke, because Jim did say, at 31, I was on stage with Jim. I opened for him. At 16, I went to see him. At 31, I was the opener in this Sydney Convention Centre. Him and Tom Hopkins, I was like 2 of my gurus. I got to open for him.
Oh, amazing.
And Jim used to say, no one can do your reading for you. Kind of like when Schwarzenegger said, no one can do your push-ups for you type thing. Well, nowadays, Jim, if he was still alive, I would call him and joke with him about the fact that Audible does all of my reading for me.
So again, doing the research, one of the things that you said was your vision was to have a coach in every business in every country. That was your vision. And again, you probably answer that question a million times. So what for you, what was the thought process behind franchising that franchising ActionCoach?
Speed of growth and access to capital. One of the great things about franchising is the franchisee brings capital with them. So you don't have to go and raise the 100 million to do it. You will raise that over time by bringing franchise partners on who do that. And second, speed of growth. When you look at doing everything by employee and management, it was very difficult for us to go and open in, say, like, our franchise partners in South Africa. They know the market, live the market, love the market. It's there. They've grown up with it. They understand it. We want that local talent. We want that local knowledge base. So that allowed us to get a speed of growth that we would have taken a lot longer to try and do it with Australians, or now where I live in America, having, trying to have Americans go and open a business in Vietnam doesn't quite work. Finding a partner in Vietnam who builds our franchise operation is far stronger, far faster in doing it that way.
No, that makes sense. Okay. Something that a friend of mine told, who's an action coach, he told me that one of my businesses is real estate. It's property in the UK. I invest and also source, what do you call it, wholesale in the US. What made you want to invest in property as an asset class that would develop your income and your business?
There's so many things. I've written books on the subject about it, but I would say 3 main things. Number one, I had to find, because business takes a lot of time and energy and effort. Business is where I devote my time and energy. I had to find an investment class that was more passive than active. When you look at the stock market, it's very active. You've got to be in there every day. You've got to be on your toes. You've got to know what you're doing, unless you're doing just a buy and hold long term type thing. Second was I needed to, so that was sort of the first thing that I looked for, as to where am I going to place the money that I'm making in business. It has to be placed somewhere.
Yeah.
And that brought to the second thing, is you play with big numbers. You're not playing with $5,000 or 10 grand, you're playing with hundreds of thousands or millions, so that it made it easier to invest larger amounts of money. But then if I break it right down into the reasons I love real estate, I find that most people that teach real estate investing, Mark, don't even really understand its actual benefit. The real reason real estate is the most powerful asset class after business. Business is still my favorite asset class. I would rather buy, build, and sell companies, because the value of a business is determined by profitability. I can double and triple the profits, therefore I can double and triple the value of the business. Real estate, if I add value to it, I can add about 30% value. If I'm just doing a facelift or a renovation of some sort, about 30% value add. I see people saying, oh, I doubled the value by cleaning it up. No, you didn't. Don't be stupid. It's just not real. You might have done it once, dude, but when you're trying to do it 100 times, you're not going to do that type thing. Oh, you knocked the building down and built a high rise? Yes, of course you did it when you did that, but that's the business of real estate, not the investment in real estate. So the most important thing that I teach people about real estate is a very simple one, and that is that you will only ever have to pay for, well, in the UK, 25%, but here in the US, 10 to 20%. In fact, the UK has been 10% at some points, but it's just different timings in the market. We'll say you've got to put in 25% or 10% or whatever it is. But I go and buy a house. Let's say I buy a house. My child is 1. I buy them a house. I put it on a 20-year mortgage. I put in 20% of the value of that house. On their 21st birthday, I give them that house. Now, whether it's gone up in value doesn't make any difference in my mind. Doesn't matter.
Why? Because it's for your children.
I had a tenant in there for 20 years. They paid off the 80%. I've already made a 400% return on investment. See, people think tenants pay, and this is what gets taught in the UK a lot. Oh, you want it for the passive income. That is the dumbest, stupidest thing I've ever heard of about real estate. It's just not realistic in my point of view. What you want real estate for is to have a tenant that pays the mortgage for you. That mortgage gets fully paid off by somebody else. So 80% of that asset is paid for by someone else. Now, that's the slowest methodology. Of course, we can do so many things of renovation and speeding up the whole process, because your goal in real estate is to get your deposit money back.
Yeah.
That's your goal. How fast can you get your deposit money back? If you can get your deposit money back in 60 days by doing a renovation, then you're buying another one in 60 days, because you want to control the biggest amount of money that you can. Now, on average, again, across the UK, this is different. But if I look back to 1935 in the UK, when the average housing price was £530, that was the average price in 1935, right? So if I look at that now and say, okay, on average, it goes up by 10%. Now, I look at where I am here in the US. There are certain markets in the US that go up. They double every 18 years. If I look at California, where it doubles on average in California, the coastal communities doubles every 5.5 years.
Wow.
But we talk about, in my hometown, Brisbane, Australia, which was every 7.5 years, it would double.
Right.
But on average, your real estate is going to double every 10 years, right? So that's just an average thing. Now, it doesn't do 10% per year. It'll do 30% one year, 50% another year, 10% another year, and then it'll go down by 3%, and then it'll go up by 2 or 3%, and then it'll double again in another 3 years out of every 10 years. So with all of those things in mind, all I care about is, do I have a tenant, and does the tenant pay my mortgage?
Right.
That's the central most important thing, because if you have a tenant that pays your mortgage, it's a 400% return no matter what. Even if it goes down by 20%, still doesn't matter. Guess why? Someone paid it off for me. It's still free. 80% of it is free. So yeah, I spend days teaching that stuff to people. I love teaching it. And my wealth, I do a 30X program. When I turn 50, Mark, and you'll learn this when you turn 50. You're much younger than me, obviously.
Well, I'm only 40. I'm 42, so I'm not miles behind
so you. when you get there, when I turned 50, I thought, you know what I'm going to do? And I built a TV studio in my office, and I went and recorded 30 days on business, 30 days on success, and 30 days on wealth. and just put them together. 30 minutes a day for 30 days, because people can't really handle much more than 30 minutes a day. And because I just thought, I want to get everything down. I've written books, but I want to get everything on video that I can possibly teach.
So an interesting question, or I think it's interesting. At your heart, are you a coach or are you an entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur.
You would say yourself as an entrepreneur, because you do run multiple businesses, and I haven't, because of our limited time that we've got, I haven't gone into your other businesses, which are vast and varied. You would say beyond being a coach, you're an entrepreneur. Is that because you run multiple businesses as your definition for an entrepreneur?
That's what I do mostly.
Right.
That's most of what I do. Coaching. I love the coaching business, but I am chairman of ActionCoach. I don't run it. I don't do it. I don't be involved in it. I coach my CEOs of my companies.
I was going to say, do you do any sort of VIP sort of with Brad, charge you £1 million a year or whatever? Do you do any of those sorts of unique sort of situations?
Yeah, I mean, I still do teaching, but the reason I teach is to keep sharp. Right. I do 38 live events a year that I actually go on and speak at, and that's it, because I don't want to, take away. But I also spend a lot of time on vacation with my kids. Like, it's just the end of summer, and people are like, "Well, why haven't you done anything?" Because I've been away. My kids and my wife and me, we spent 2 months traveling during the summer and going and having fun and doing the things that. Why build freedom if you then stay tied to your business? It doesn't make any sense to do that.
So you've led me on very nicely onto the next question. So one of the things you said is you're passionate about your family. So how does the entrepreneur that's running maybe 2 or 3 businesses, how would you advise them to be able to build a business that works without you, that gives you the freedom to be able to spend time with family on vacation or on a more daily basis?
Hire an action coach. Read all of my books and follow in the footsteps. I mean, look, you've got to become the business owner. Unfortunately, many of us, when we started in business, we make the mistake of, and I did this 100% when I started ActionCoach. I made the mistake of, I'm the owner, I'm always here, call me anytime. And so they did. And then if I wasn't there, they wouldn't buy. And it's like, why aren't they buying? Because you've trained them to only buy if you answer the call. You've trained them to do that. So you've got to retrain your customers. You've got to retrain yourself. You've got to build that. And the biggest emotional hurdle, Mark, is the ability to let go. The ability to, and when over the years, I've interviewed a lot of our clients who've had massive breakthroughs in their business and done amazing things in their business. And I sit down and I go, geez, I wonder why that person had a breakthrough. So let me interview them. And there's one common factor in all of them that had massive breakthroughs. I had to learn to let go. I had to learn to trust my people. I had to learn to allow my people to run the business. And if you are willing to learn to let go and willing to allow your people to run the business, because if you don't trust them, then don't hire them.
Right.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I trust my employees. Then fire that person. If you don't trust them, you should get rid of them immediately. Now, the fact that you're a distrusting person is a different thing. You got to learn to trust and learn to allow your people. Now, are they going to be as good as you? No, they're going to be better if you've hired properly.
Yeah.
Most people don't hire people that will be better than them. Most people hire people that will not be as good as them because they have an ego in play.
Yeah.
I want my chief legal officer. She's so much better at the law than I am by 1,000,000 miles. And if she wasn't, she should not have that job. My CFO, so much better. I'm a trained accountant, but my CFO, much better at all of that stuff than me. My head of marketing, much better at marketing than I am. If I was better at marketing than her, she should not have the job.
Yeah.
I go back to that, though, that people, the old pay peanuts, get monkeys sort of thing. And but I go back to right in the beginning. Actually, my dad taught me this lesson. I was 20 or 21. I can't really remember exactly what year it was. But I said to my dad, what? I went in and I was complaining to him. I just can't get good people. I can't get good. And he looked me dead in the eye. My dad's a very blunt man. He says, Brad, you get the people you deserve. Like, you're an average manager running an average business. The highest caliber of person that's ever going to want to work for you is average. And it was like, yeah, stabbed in the heart. Thanks, Dad. I appreciate your honesty. But I mean, he was right. He was dead on. Until you're a great leader running a great company, great people don't want to work for you. Great people want to work for great companies. So you've got to learn to become a great leader, build a great company, great manager, and then you'll attract the greater people. But you hire, my philosophy for all of my CEOs is hire good, build great. Hire good, build great. So, hire good people, build them into great people. And always hire people who are overqualified.
Yeah.
Because they can take you somewhere. If they're underqualified, they can't take you anywhere. They drag you back. If they're qualified, all they can do is maintain status quo. Yeah. If I've got a business that's doing 2 million a year and I want it to do 100 million a year, what I should do is go and hire a gal that's run a business that did 100 million a year and give it to her and say, okay, this is doing 2 million. Can you make it into 100? Yes, I can. Good. How do I know she can? She's done it before.
Yeah.
Good.
So let's we've talked about, you were talking about employees. So let's jump chronologically back a few years to when it was Action International before it was ActionCoach. Who was your first employee?
My first employer was Ross Guthrie, my best mate from college. I did the mistake everybody makes. Now, Ross did great for me, by the way. He was fantastic. He did a lot of wonderful things, helped me out immensely, and went on to go and do his own things and that sort of stuff. But, I didn't design the job description. I didn't write a job description. I didn't know who I wanted. I didn't know how they were going to be measured and what would mean they're successful. I didn't know, all of those things you're supposed to do, I didn't do. Why? Because I was 20 and I was learning how to run a business.
Yeah.
So shout out to Ross if he's listening.
And I suppose let's fast forward a little bit to that point in your business where, and I hear this a lot from people who I interview and sort of talk to, and people in the business world, that phase from when you start a business, the excitement of starting a business, you might not get the right people, but you get lots of generalists who could do a little bit of marketing, a little bit of finance, a little bit of legal work, and you get all of those in place. So when you realize that you wanted to build that business bigger, that transitional phase from generalist to specialist, where you talked about bringing in the right FD or CFO, or however you want to describe it, how did you struggle and get over that issue from moving from generalist to specialist in your business?
Yeah, I mean, actually, there's a lot of that on the book Blitz Scaling. They talk about that a whole bunch, about how some people need to be demoted as the company grows. You're the marketing manager now when there's 7 of us, but when there's 100 of us, you're just an executive on the marketing team. You're not good enough to manage a team of 30 marketers. You are good enough to manage a team of 1 marketer, But so sometimes you've got to move people to the side or demote them or that sort of thing. You've got to help people understand their role. But a lot of those generalists also, Mark, can be used in other divisions or in other areas of the company where they are a great generalist and you can use them for things. And the fact that over the years we kept building different businesses allowed me to use those generalists to move from one company to the next and do that startup phase again. Because some people are really great at startup phase, but really bad at running the business phase. This would be one of those people. When it comes to a new business and a new philosophy and all of that, all the newness, I'm brilliant at that stuff. When it comes to that day-to-day, keep it running, I have to have CEOs in place because it's just not my nature.
Is it not as much fun?
For some people, it is. For some people, hate the startup phase.
Yeah,
they don't want to be in a startup ever. And that's where we use a lot of profiling tools to hire the right people, because if you hire the right people, then they do the right job in that thing. And so, I've had some people over the years that have gone off and run other businesses or gone off and done their own thing and then come back to work with me. And I love that fact too, that we can take those people and bring them back in and put them to use in something else or somewhere else.
Amazing. So you mentioned a couple of times you're 17 now, going to be 18 books. So that's prolific on anyone's scale, having 18 books being released. what keeps you motivated to go through that process? Because as a entrepreneur, business owner myself, people have said to me, especially with this podcast, oh, well, the natural progression is you should write a book.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come natural to me as an entrepreneur.
Didn't come natural to me either. It
Right,
didn't
so
come
interesting.
natural
So
to me
let's
in the
explore
beginning.
that. So what made you write your first book, and how have you kept the prolificness that you've got 18 books released?
First book I wrote because I got sick of teaching the same thing and thought, if I write it in a book, then I can just give it to people and they can read it and I don't have to teach that ever again. So it was my 5 ways to multiply your profits formula, which if anyone's watching, they can dive on YouTube or anywhere. There's Brad Sugar's 5 ways and you'll see I teach that on there. But what then we needed to do was, I realized as I was teaching and educating our clients at ActionCoach, I needed to put things in book format so that they could read it rather than just be taught it type thing. And so that helped out a great deal. But now what I find a subject interesting, and I find a subject very, like when this was the last one released, Pulling Profits Out of a Hat, and it's about scaling a business, so exponential growth. And so I spent a couple of years studying our clients that did that with my co-author Monty, and by studying the disciplines that they go through, it fascinates me. And I think that if I can put it into, my key to any great book is I've got to be able to draw it on a napkin. If I can draw it on a napkin, if that book can be in one single page, then the book makes sense and everything explains how that all comes together. So in this case, we use the 5 circles of exponential growth. So each of the 5 disciplines and how they relate to each other, I can draw that on a napkin. The same with the raise your hand marketing. You can draw the simple formula I teach in that book on a single napkin. But ultimately, I keep coming back to, Mark, the reason I write them is I get sick of teaching it, so that therefore I put it in a book and I can say, oh yeah, read that. That's over there. I don't have to teach that one anymore. And that's where the next book after Raise Your Hand is going to be called The Life Coach. So I've written the business coach, the wealth coach. Now I'm going to write the life coach. Well, it's already written. It's already in my head. So I'll dictate it, get it typed up, and then work it from there.
Amazing. What would you say your biggest achievement is in your 30 years in business?
People.
Your people that you work with?
People that I've built. The people that I've built. I've built some amazing entrepreneurs, some amazing CEOs. I've built great people. And I look at them today and their level of success, even though they don't work with me anymore, they've gone on and built their own businesses. But you know, I've built great people. Like just simple one. My personal assistant for many years. She was my personal assistant. She now runs a massive business doing planning of travels for weddings and things. Like she's a wedding concierge and helps people travel, and private VIP concierge for travel for major events and things. Phenomenal business. My old security, my head of security too. For years, he was my driver, my security, personal, him and Pat. Now he's off. He runs a large private security firm here in Las Vegas, where I live. And so I love watching my people go off and become super successful in their own right. And some people are like, well, aren't you worried that they leave? You know what? You need to build a company. You need to build a company that people don't want to leave, but you need to build people who are capable of leaving. Right. If they're not capable of leaving, then they're not capable of growing my business. So, but they love working with me for all of the great things we get to do. Like my team at Action, you mentioned ActionCoach. It's the company I'm probably most known for, because no one knows my commercial cleaning business, that it's mine. No one knows, you know, the businesses that are mine that I'm just in the background. I have a CEO who's in the foreground. I don't want to. We went to a restaurant that I'm a major shareholder in here on the Strip in Las Vegas at the Wynn. It's called Le Cave. And my partner, Morty, runs the business. But we went in one night, and my second eldest daughter, I think at the time she was 11 or so, and we walked up, and the front girl on the desk said, "Dad, you have a reservation?" I said, "Yes, for Sugars." And she showed us to the table. My daughter came to me and said, "Dad, I don't think that girl knows that we like own the place. And my first response was, well, first of all, kid, we don't own anything. I own a lot. You're not rich. I am. Okay, so get that one through your head. And second, that means I'm successful. The fact that this business runs and makes a profit without me ever having to go in there, that's success. So anyway, we get back to that. So I forget why I went on to that story, Mark, but hopefully I've answered the question by telling stories.
You have about your biggest achievement. You have, and what's one of the questions I've been thinking about in the last few weeks, which is becoming more important to me the older I get, is about health and the balance between health and wealth, and sort of how they are intertwined with each other. Without your health, you won't have wealth. What's your view on your own health as an entrepreneur running or being chairman of those businesses? How do you intertwine your health side?
Well, health comes first. You can't have, like, if you have health, you have all the options in the world. If you don't have health, you only have there's only one thing you care about if you don't have health. Steve Jobs proved that.
Yeah.
You know, one of the nicest, richest, most successful. He wasn't nice early on, but he became nice. You know, and you think about that. So you must allocate 1 hour a day to your health. You must. There's no other way to put it. And that's mental health and physical health. You can't just do physical health. You've got to do mental health as well. So meditation and those sorts of things are a very big, important part of it. You know, if you're struggling with health, it's real simple. Buy a big dog. You know, you must walk the dang thing. It needs walking every day. You got to do it. But, you know, there was a period in my life, and I remember it when my wife had when we're having our 5th child, and you know, I put on some extra weight because she's the chef in our house. She's an amazing cook, and she cooks and keeps us all fit and healthy from that perspective, or healthy from that perspective. And she couldn't cook because she couldn't cut meats, or she couldn't cut anything. She just couldn't stomach it. And so I put on a little bit of extra weight. And as they say, I went out in sympathy with her. And I still remember being, the baby was born in May, and I still had the baby weight on at January 1st. And I looked in the mirror and said, you fat so-and-so, get your act together. It's, you know, look, health is very simple. I teach it in my 30X life course. I do a whole segment there on health, mental health and physical health. What are the keys to it? But it's not that difficult, Mark. Like, I have 2 of these sitting next to my desk every single day of my life. Why? Because I have to drink 2 of these every single day and do it. Get some sunshine, get some fresh air, eat stuff that didn't come out of a can or a package. Yeah. If it comes out of a can or a package, it's probably not that good for you. The food that's best for you comes in its own wrapper. Yeah. So, you know, peel a banana, eat some fruit, eat some veggies, that sort of thing. Now, I'm still Australian, so I still enjoy my beer of an afternoon and all of that stuff. But I'm 51 and probably as fit as I've ever been in my entire life, even though I had to give up running because I did my knee. And I don't think the body was designed to do that many miles that I'd done in my life as a runner. Okay. So at 6'4" runner, did that one in.
You struggle with doing that. Fair enough. Okay, you've had an incredible business career. I think everyone who's listened to this and you've spoken truth and spoken and really hit to the home of what an entrepreneur and a business owner is. So what's your plan, Brad, for the next 2 to 5 years? Where do you see your growth as a business owner and as a person?
We've just taken on another investment. We've invested in another company. So I'm going to focus a little bit on that for the next 100 days. So when we take something on, I spend sort of 90 to 100 days sort of fairly focused on that. And that's in the beef industry, the Wagyu beef industry. So
that's so interesting. I was watching a thing with Robert Kiyosaki, and he was saying that he has recently invested in a Wagyu beef bull. And he's like, I'm now selling sperm. And I just thought, and he was just like, but it's something tangible that I can see an asset, and I'm working with that. So please tell me a little bit about your Wagyu business.
Well, we're really a marketing business. So my partner in the business, his grandfather was the first one to bring Wagyu cattle to the United States, Kobe beef cattle. The Emperor of Japan bought his dairy cattle and took them to Japan and flew back with 10 steer to inseminate across the US. So the first ones ever. The Japanese learned very quickly not to send the Kobe cattle out, though. Now they only sell the sperm from Japan. That's the only way you can get it. But that's a phenomenal business. I think that I'm going to stay teaching for a while. My youngest daughter is only 4, so while the kids are still in school, I still have to be around home for a period of the year. So I can't bring myself to retire. I tried to retire when I was 26. I hit the point of financial freedom, but I didn't hit the point of mental freedom. I really did not enjoy. I took up golf and I played golf with the only retired person I knew, my dad. And after about, I think it was 6 or 8 weeks, I got down to a single figure handicap because I'm very focused. I was playing 6 days of golf every week. And I played 2 rounds of golf a day most days because I'm a little intense when I want to do something, or I used to be a little intense. I think the biggest thing for me in the next 3 to 5 years is the continuation of building great team members. My vision for Action of world abundance through business re-education, we're 30 years into a 100-year vision. So, I want to keep that growth going and keep building my people. I'll keep writing. I don't think I'll stop writing. But then again, I just also invested in another marketing company out of the UK, and that is scaling at a rapid rate of knots. So I'm really excited about that. We do marketing for accountants and solicitors and business coaches. And the reason I bought half of the company was because they were doing it for business coaches. And I was like, I don't want you doing that for any other business coaches. I'd like you doing that only for ActionCoach. So if I buy half the company, that'll be the deal. Yes. Okay. So I bought half the company. So,
Okay. So it seems like you've got plenty to be planned for the next
and visiting my kids. My 2 eldest are in college. One's in Tuscaloosa in Alabama. So Alabama's the #1 football team in the country in the United States for college football. So we get to a couple of games in Alabama. We get to a couple of trips to Boston. It's where my wife grew up. So we go and visit Kobe in Boston as well. And we love travel. We love eating. We love great restaurants, great concerts. We do a lot of concerts. I have seats at every stadium in my city. I basically buy membership seats. And so whenever anything's on, if it's football, if it's baseball, I got seats. So I love going to stuff. Love doing that. So amazing. I don't see me working more than twice a week, though, 2 days a week. I do a little bit of recording on Wednesdays, though. These days I get in the TV studio and record new information because, whenever I come up with something new, I want to record it just to make sure it's there forever.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, we're coming to the end of the interview. I asked the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They're quick fire questions. They don't need a quick fire answer. First one is, what was the best decision that you've made?
To become a business person, to not work a job.
What was the best piece of advice you were given?
3 things, all from the famous Jim Rohn, E. James Rohn. Number 1, never wish your life were easier, wish you were better. Number 2, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And number 3, read a book a week for the rest of your life.
Right.
Put those 3 things together, and that's the recipe for success. If you keep working on you, life doesn't, business will never get easy. You got to get better at business. Sales will never get easy. Relationships will never get easy. You got to get better at relationships. Raising kids is never going to get easier. I remember when my wife told me we were having twins, my first thing was, after I picked my jaw up off the floor and was like, twins? What? Yeah, I jumped on Amazon and ordered 4 books on how to raise twins. It's like, you got to keep studying. You want to get better at it. If you get better, it gets easier.
So this year, this isn't part of the question. It's just I'm intrigued about this book a week. This year, what's been the best book that you've read in 2022?
Best book of this year.
Or name a couple if it's a couple.
So Oversubscribed would be high up on the list.
Yeah.
Oversubscribed. The Membership Economy would be high up on the list. Yeah, those 2 would probably be the two highest on the list.
Okay, I've read Oversubscribed. I've not read membership economy. I will look into that.
Yeah.
Who helped you most in your career?
My team. I have to say my team over the years, it's been different people, but yeah, I mean, my dad was the earliest help, and then from there, it's been my team.
Okay. Do you have any regrets?
Always. If you don't, if you don't have regrets, you haven't lived a life. You know, I've made stupid mistakes. I've done dumb things, said dumb things, you know, partied too much, done, you know, it's like people say, would you ever go into politics? No, no. Had too many fun times to ever think of doing something that's like that. But you
It's
know,
interesting.
I think that, and when you say are they regrets, I don't know, they're regrets or they're just, geez, I probably shouldn't have done that one. But
yeah.
you know, stupid decisions lead to better decisions. So
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a really divisive question, this whole thing about regrets, because what I find is there's two camps. There's one camp that is I'm a sum of all my parts, and without those past mistakes or bad choices, I wouldn't be where I am, which I get. I understand the premise of where they've come from to have that opinion. But there's got to be something that in your past you just like, I wish I hadn't have done that. And as you say, it might be it might not necessarily be a business choice, but often so you say something and you're like, oh, I
yeah,
wish I hadn't
there's
have said
things
that.
there's things that you wish you could take back that you've said. I mean,
Yeah.
and shoot, I got 5 kids. You don't think I've made a mistake in raising them? I keep telling my eldest, listen, I've never had a 20-year-old kid before in college, so you're the first one. You're my guinea pig. Congratulations, I'm learning with you. And I have to be honest with her. I said, listen, I don't know, kid. I've never had a 20-year-old kid. This is my first time. Let's learn it together.
Yeah, mine are 6 and 8, 2 girls, 6 and 8, and when they're at that age, they're just before the teenage years where they distance themselves and they do their own thing. And I was talking to my wife, he just got back from a holiday, and we were having this conversation, and I was like, yeah, for a quick example, my kids were messing about on a chair yesterday and broke quite an expensive chair that we had in our kitchen, and I got angry and I stepped out of the kitchen. I went out in the back garden and sort of collected my thoughts, and I walked in after that and I said, look, I'm angry with you, but you're a kid. You're testing boundaries. You're trying different things. You need to experiment and see what works, what doesn't work. So although, yes, I'm frustrated at what you've done, you are still a kid. You're allowed to make these mistakes. And I just think for me, it was taking that step out of when you.
Well, you're very wise to do that. You know?
I don't always do that.
No. So, but yeah, look, you know, parenting is really 3 phases. The first phase is where everything you think is what matters to the kid, what you think is what matters to them. The second phase is what their friends think is what matters to them. And the third phase is what they think is what matters.
Yeah.
Our goal as parents is to leap them from phase 1 to phase 3 as fast as we can.
Yeah.
You know, to get them to what they think matters. Again, in my 30x life, because raising 5 kids and doing that, and studying raising children because I wanted to be good at it. I did a whole section in there on what I believe has helped me raise good kids.
Yeah. And I think girls and boys are different as well. I think
Very.
Yeah.
But girls are different from each other too. Like every child is unique and
absolutely
and different. So always fun.
Yeah. Next one. What are you most proud of?
Me, who I've become. If you saw the snot-nosed, bratty, pain in the ass kid that I was, and you see who I've grown into, I would say that.
Awesome. What does legacy mean to you?
World abundance through business re-education is the first main legacy, because there's 3 levels of goal setting. Away goals, like getting out of a negative, towards goals, getting into a positive, and final level of goal setting is legacy, is where you leave something behind that's greater than you. So, you know, I would love that ActionCoach will endure and live on well past me.
And do you have any ambition for your children to take on any of your businesses?
I have an ambition for them to do whatever the heck they want to do and not be the burden on them of doing what dad wants. If they want to join me on certain things, fantastic, but I would prefer they went into an entrepreneur path of something they love. My second oldest, I know she loves restaurants, and I'm imagining restaurants and bars will be her thing that she loves. My oldest is a photographer, and that's what she loves. Right. My goal for them is to find something they love as much as I love this business, and let them go do it.
Amazing. And lastly, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Google. Pretty simple.
Right.
BradSugars.com, ActionCoach.com. You name the social media I'm on, and I'm even on TikTok these days. I don't dance, but I'm on TikTok.
Amazing. I've joined the TikTok revolution as well. So you will see, if you check out on TikTok, there will be videos of you in due course. Lastly, Brad, thank you so much for your time. I know you're an extremely busy guy and you've got lots of things on, so I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with my audience. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, my friend. Be well.
Cheers. Bye.